Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the person you are today is simply the result of thousands of small habits you repeated yesterday, last week, last month, and even years ago. Your health, your productivity, your focus, your success, and even your happiness are quietly shaped by the tiny routines you perform every single day. Most people believe that massive success requires massive action, but the truth revealed in Atomic Habits is very different. According to the author, real transformation does not come from huge life changes. It comes from small improvements that compound over time. Think about it like money in a bank account earning interest. If you improve yourself by just 1% every day, those improvements slowly accumulate and eventually create extraordinary results. But if you ignore your habits and allow small negative behaviors to repeat every day, those tiny mistakes also compound, slowly pulling your life in the opposite direction. This is why habits are so powerful. They are small actions, but they shape the direction of your life. The author explains this idea through a powerful concept called the aggregation of marginal gains. Imagine an airplane leaving Los Angeles and flying to New York. If the pilot adjusts the direction of the plane by only a few degrees south, the plane will eventually land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. The difference at the beginning is almost invisible, but over time it creates a completely different destination. Habits work exactly the same way. A small positive habit repeated every day slowly moves your life toward success, while a small negative habit repeated every day slowly moves you away from it. The scary part is that these changes are often invisible at first. When you start exercising, you might not see results for weeks. When you begin reading every day, your knowledge might not feel dramatically different after a few days. Because of this, many people quit early. They expect instant results, but habits require patience. Real change often happens quietly beneath the surface until one day the results suddenly become visible. One of the most powerful lessons in Atomic Habits is that goals are not the most important part of success. Many people believe that achieving goals will change their lives, but the author argues that systems are more important than goals. A goal is simply the result you want to achieve, but a system is the process you follow every day. For example, the goal might be to lose weight, but the system is the daily habit of exercising and eating healthier food. The goal might be to write a book, but the system is the daily habit of writing a few pages every morning. Goals can provide direction, but systems create progress. If you focus only on goals, you might feel motivated for a short time, but once the excitement fades, the behavior disappears. However, if you focus on building strong systems, progress becomes automatic because the habits themselves carry you forward. Another important insight from the book is that habits are not simply about what you do. They are about who you believe you are. Most people try to change their habits by focusing on outcomes. They say things like, "I want to lose weight," or "I want to be more productive." But the author explains that lasting change happens when you shift your identity. Instead of saying, "I want to run a marathon," a person begins to think of themselves as a runner. Instead of saying, "I want to write more," they start seeing themselves as a writer. Every action you take becomes a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you read a book, you cast a vote for being a learner. When you exercise, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. Over time, these votes accumulate and shape your identity. This is why small habits matter so much. They reinforce the story you tell yourself about who you are. The book describes a simple but powerful idea. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Imagine two athletes competing in a race. Both athletes may share the same goal of winning the competition, but the athlete who has a better training system will eventually win. The same principle applies to every area of life. The person with better study habits performs better academically. The person with better financial habits builds wealth more easily. The person with better health habits maintains fitness more consistently. Success is rarely the result of one big decision. It is usually the result of thousands of tiny decisions repeated over time. Another fascinating concept discussed in the book is the plateau of latent potential. When people begin working toward a goal, they often expect immediate improvement. But progress rarely follows a straight line. Instead, it looks more like a delayed curve. At first, you work hard but see almost no results. This stage is where many people become frustrated and give up. However, If you continue practicing your habits, the results eventually break through in what the author calls a breakthrough moment. It is similar to heating an ice cube in a cold room. At first, raising the temperature from 25 degrees to 30 degrees produces no visible change. Even at 31 degrees, the ice still looks exactly the same. But when the temperature reaches 32 degrees, the ice suddenly begins to melt. The change appears dramatic, but it is actually the result of gradual progress that was happening all along. Understanding this concept helps you remain patient when results seem slow. Every time you repeat a positive habit, you are building potential. Even if you cannot see immediate results, your actions are gradually shaping your future. The key is consistency. Small habits repeated consistently become powerful forces over time. At its core, Atomic Habits teaches a simple truth. Big success is not created by big decisions alone. It is created by small habits, performed consistently every day. The tiny choices you make today may seem insignificant, but they quietly shape the person you will become tomorrow. And this realization leads to the next powerful idea explored in the book: how habits actually work inside the brain, and why our minds repeat certain behaviors again and again. To truly understand how habits shape our lives, we first need to understand how they actually work inside the brain. Every habit, whether it is good or bad, follows a simple pattern that scientists call the habit loop. This loop has 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. These 4 steps happen every time a habit is formed, and once you recognize this pattern, you begin to see it everywhere in daily life. A cue is the trigger that starts the behavior. It is the signal that tells your brain to begin a certain action. For example, seeing a notification on your phone can trigger the habit of checking social media. Walking into the kitchen can trigger the habit of grabbing a snack. Even emotions such as boredom or stress can act as cues that start certain behaviors. Our brains are constantly scanning the environment for cues that predict rewards, because human beings are naturally wired to notice opportunities that might improve their lives. Once the cue appears, the second stage begins, which is the craving. The craving is the motivation behind every habit. It is the desire that pushes you to act. What people often misunderstand is that we do not crave the habit itself. Instead, we crave the feeling or benefit that the habit provides. For instance, a person does not truly crave scrolling through social media. What they crave is the stimulation, entertainment, or connection that comes from it. Similarly, a person does not crave brushing their teeth. They crave the feeling of having a clean and fresh mouth. Understanding this difference is important because it reveals the psychological reason why habits form. Habits exist because they solve a problem or provide a reward that the brain values. The third stage of the habit loop is the response, which is the actual action or behavior that you perform. This is the habit itself. The response could be anything from checking your phone, eating a snack, going for a run, or opening a book to read. Whether or not the response occurs depends on how motivated you are and how difficult the behavior is. If the action requires too much effort, you are less likely to do it. For example, if healthy food is difficult to prepare but junk food is easily available, your brain will often choose the easier option. Humans naturally prefer behaviors that require the least amount of energy. The final stage is the reward, which is the outcome that satisfies the craving. The reward is the reason the brain remembers the habit for the future. When a habit provides a satisfying result, the brain begins to associate the cue with the reward, and this association strengthens the habit loop. Over time, the brain learns that whenever the cue appears, performing the response will lead to a reward. Eventually, this process becomes automatic. You no longer think consciously about the habit because the brain has already built a shortcut that connects the cue directly to the behavior. One fascinating aspect of habits is that they allow the brain to conserve energy. The human brain is constantly searching for ways to save effort, and habits are one of the most efficient solutions it has developed. When a behavior becomes automatic, the brain no longer needs to make a decision each time the situation appears. Instead, the habit runs almost like a program in the background. This is extremely useful for simple tasks like brushing your teeth or driving a familiar route, but it can also lead to negative habits if the behavior is unhealthy or unproductive. Think about how often you pick up your phone without even realizing it. Many people unlock their phones dozens of times each day without consciously deciding to do so. The cue might be boredom or a notification sound. The craving might be curiosity or the desire for stimulation. The response is checking the phone, and the reward is the brief satisfaction of seeing new information. Because this loop happens repeatedly, the behavior quickly becomes automatic. The powerful insight from Atomic Habits is that once you understand this four-step process, you can begin to design better habits and break bad ones. By controlling the cues in your environment, you can influence which habits are triggered. By understanding cravings, you can identify the true motivations behind your behaviors. By making responses easier or harder, you can encourage good habits and discourage bad ones. And by adjusting rewards, you can reinforce behaviors that lead to positive outcomes. For example, imagine you want to build the habit of reading every day. If books are hidden away on a shelf while your phone is always in your hand, the cue for reading rarely appears. But if you place a book on your pillow or desk where you see it frequently, the cue becomes obvious. Similarly, if reading feels difficult or boring, you might struggle to maintain the habit. But if you choose books that genuinely interest you, the reward becomes stronger, making the behavior easier to repeat. The same principle applies when trying to eliminate bad habits. If a habit begins with a cue in your environment, removing that cue can significantly weaken the behavior. For instance, if you want to reduce your screen time, keeping your phone in another room while working can remove the trigger entirely. Without the cue, the habit loop becomes much harder to start. Understanding the habit loop reveals an important truth. Habits are not random. They follow a predictable structure that can be shaped and redesigned. Once you see this pattern clearly, you realize that building better habits is not about relying on willpower alone. Instead, it is about understanding how behavior works and using that knowledge to guide your actions. And this understanding leads to the next powerful concept introduced in the book, the 4 laws of behavior change, a simple system that can help anyone build good habits and break bad ones. After understanding how habits work through the 4-step habit loop, the next question naturally arises. If habits follow a predictable pattern, can we intentionally design better habits for ourselves? According to the author of Atomic Habits, the answer is yes. By studying human behavior and psychology, he discovered that almost every habit can be influenced by 4 simple principles. These principles are called the 4 laws of behavior change. They act like a framework that helps us create good habits while simultaneously eliminating bad ones. The 4 laws are simple but extremely powerful. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. When a habit follows these 4 laws, it becomes much more likely to stick. And when a bad habit violates these laws, it becomes much easier to break. The first law is make it obvious. Human beings are highly influenced by their environment. Many habits are triggered simply because we see something that reminds us to act. If the cue is visible and clear, the habit becomes easier to start. Think about how often you grab your phone just because it is sitting next to you. The phone itself becomes a visual cue that triggers the behavior. The same principle can be used to build positive habits. If you want to drink more water, place a water bottle on your desk where you can see it constantly. If you want to read more books, keep a book on your pillow or bedside table. The goal is to design your environment so that the cues for good habits become obvious while the cues for bad habits become invisible. When unhealthy snacks are hidden away and healthy food is easily visible, your behavior automatically begins to change. The environment quietly shapes your decisions. Another powerful technique related to the first law is something called habit stacking. This means attaching a new habit to an existing habit that already happens automatically. For example, if you already drink coffee every morning, you can add a new habit immediately after that routine. After I pour my morning coffee, I will read 1 page of a book. After I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 2 minutes. By linking a new behavior to a habit that already exists, you create a reliable cue that reminds you to perform the new action. Over time, the new habit becomes just as automatic as the original one. The second law is make it attractive. Habits become stronger when they are associated with positive feelings. The more attractive a behavior appears, the more likely you are to repeat it. Our brains are naturally drawn to things that promise pleasure, excitement, or satisfaction. This is why social media apps are so addictive. They are designed to deliver small bursts of entertainment and novelty that keep users coming back again and again. To build better habits, we can use the same psychological principle. One strategy is called temptation bundling. This means pairing a habit you want to do with an activity you enjoy. For example, you might only allow yourself to watch your favorite TV show while exercising on a treadmill. Or you might listen to an interesting podcast while cleaning your room. By combining a necessary task with an enjoyable activity, the habit becomes more attractive and easier to repeat. The third law is make it easy. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build new habits is expecting themselves to perform difficult actions immediately. They set unrealistic goals such as exercising for an hour every day or reading 50 pages of a book each night. When the habit feels overwhelming, the brain naturally resists it. The author explains that the key to building habits is not intensity, but consistency. Instead of focusing on how much you do, focus on how often you show up. This idea is known as the 2-minute rule. When starting a new habit, scale it down until it takes less than 2 minutes to complete. If you want to develop a reading habit, start by reading just 1 page. If you want to start exercising, begin with a 2-minute workout. The goal is not to achieve massive progress immediately, but to make the habit so easy that you cannot say no. Once the behavior becomes automatic, you can gradually expand it into a longer routine. The reason this strategy works is because habits are formed through repetition, not perfection. Each time you perform the behavior, you reinforce the neural pathway in your brain that supports that habit. The easier the habit is to perform, the more frequently it will occur. Over time, these small repetitions strengthen the habit until it becomes part of your identity. The fourth and final law is make it satisfying. Human beings are more likely to repeat behaviors that produce immediate rewards. Unfortunately, many good habits provide delayed rewards, while bad habits often deliver instant gratification. For example, eating junk food feels good immediately, but harms your health later. Exercising feels difficult at first, but improves your health in the long run. Because the brain prioritizes immediate satisfaction, it is important to create small rewards that reinforce positive behaviors. One effective strategy is habit tracking. By marking each day that you complete a habit on a calendar or habit tracker, you create a visual record of progress. Seeing a chain of successful days becomes motivating because people naturally want to maintain the streak. Habit tracking also creates a sense of accomplishment. Even though the habit itself may feel small, recording it gives the brain a clear signal that progress is happening. Over time, the satisfaction of maintaining the habit becomes a reward in itself. The author emphasizes an important rule: never miss twice. Missing one day is a natural part of life, but missing 2 days in a row increases the risk of the habit disappearing completely. If you miss a day, simply return to the habit the next day without overthinking it. When you combine these 4 laws together, building habits becomes much easier. Make the cue obvious, make the behavior attractive, make the action easy, and make the reward satisfying. These principles work together to guide human behavior in a predictable way. Instead of relying on motivation or willpower, you design your environment and routines so that the right behaviors happen naturally. And once these 4 laws become part of your life, you begin to realize something powerful. Success is not about making one giant decision. It is about making small choices every day that slowly shape the person you become. But the journey does not end here. The book also reveals another fascinating insight: how your environment quietly controls your habits and decisions, often without you even noticing it. One of the most surprising ideas presented in Atomic Habits is that our environment often shapes our behavior more than our motivation does. Many people believe that habits are purely a matter of willpower, but the author argues that willpower is unreliable. Instead of constantly trying to fight temptation, a smarter approach is to design an environment that naturally encourages good habits and discourages bad ones. Think about how much your surroundings influence what you do every day. When unhealthy snacks are placed on the kitchen counter, you are more likely to eat them. When your phone is always within reach, you are more likely to check it repeatedly. These small environmental cues quietly guide your behavior without you even realizing it. The author explains that human beings are extremely sensitive to visual cues. We are constantly scanning our surroundings for signals that tell us what action to take next. This is why changing your environment can have a dramatic impact on your habits. If you want to build better habits, the first step is to make the cues for those habits visible and unavoidable. For example, if you want to practice playing the guitar more often, place the guitar in the middle of your room instead of hiding it inside a closet. If you want to read more books, keep a book on your desk or bedside table where it is always within sight. By making the cue obvious, you reduce the effort required to begin the habit. At the same time, it is equally important to make bad habits invisible. If a negative behavior is constantly triggered by environmental cues, removing those cues can weaken the habit dramatically. For instance, if you want to reduce the amount of time you spend on social media, keeping your phone in another room while working can make a huge difference. Without the cue of seeing your phone, the habit loop becomes much harder to activate. In many cases, eliminating a cue is far more effective than trying to rely on self-control. Another powerful concept related to environment design is known as choice architecture. This idea suggests that the way options are presented in an environment can strongly influence the decisions people make. Imagine entering a kitchen where healthy fruits and vegetables are placed at eye level, while junk food is hidden away in hard-to-reach cabinets. Without even thinking about it, you are more likely to choose the healthier option. By simply rearranging your environment, you can guide your behavior toward better decisions. The same strategy can be applied to productivity and focus. Many people struggle with distractions while working because their environment is filled with tempting cues. Notifications on their phone, open tabs on their computer, and background noise all compete for their attention. To solve this problem, the author recommends creating a workspace that is designed specifically for focus. A clean desk, limited digital distractions, and clearly defined work areas can make it easier for the brain to concentrate on the task at hand. Interestingly, the environment not only influences what we do, but also how we feel about certain activities. When a space is associated with a specific habit, the brain begins to link that environment with the behavior automatically. For example, if you always read in a particular chair or corner of your room, simply sitting in that location may trigger the desire to read. Over time, the environment itself becomes a cue for the habit. This is why it can be helpful to assign different areas of your home to specific activities. A desk can become the place where you focus on work. A comfortable chair can become the place where you read books. By giving each space a clear purpose, you create a system that encourages positive habits. The author also explains that our environment includes not only physical surroundings, but also the people around us. Humans are social creatures, and we naturally imitate the behaviors of those in our community. If the people around you value fitness, productivity, and learning, you are more likely to adopt those behaviors as well. But if your environment is filled with people who encourage unhealthy habits, it becomes much harder to stay disciplined. This is why surrounding yourself with the right influences can have a powerful effect on your personal growth. Ultimately, environment design teaches us a simple but powerful lesson. Instead of constantly relying on motivation and willpower, we can make better habits easier by shaping the world around us. When the environment supports your goals, discipline becomes less about effort and more about alignment. Your surroundings begin to guide you toward the behaviors that move your life forward. And this realization leads to another important question explored in the book. Once we build good habits, how do we maintain them over the long term without losing motivation or falling back into old patterns? Building a habit is one thing, but maintaining it for months or even years is a completely different challenge. Many people start new habits with enthusiasm and motivation, but over time that motivation fades. Life becomes busy, distractions appear, and slowly the new habit disappears. According to the author of Atomic Habits, the secret to long-term success is not relying on motivation, but creating systems that encourage consistency. The true power of habits is revealed when they are repeated over long periods of time. A habit practiced for a few days may produce little change, but a habit repeated for months or years can completely transform a person's life. One of the most powerful tools for maintaining habits is something called habit tracking. Habit tracking simply means recording each time you complete a habit. This can be done using a calendar, a notebook, or even a digital app. Every day that you successfully perform the habit, you mark it down. At first glance, this may seem like a simple technique, but it has a powerful psychological effect. When you see a visible record of your progress, your brain receives a clear signal that improvement is happening. Each completed habit becomes proof that you are moving in the right direction. Habit tracking also creates something extremely motivating, a streak. When you see several days or weeks of successful habits in a row, you naturally want to continue the chain. Breaking the streak feels uncomfortable, so you become more motivated to repeat the behavior again. This is why many successful people use habit trackers or calendars to monitor their daily routines. The visual reminder of progress reinforces the habit loop and encourages consistency. However, the author also emphasizes an important rule when it comes to consistency: never miss twice. Missing one day is not a failure. Life is unpredictable, and occasionally skipping a habit is normal. But missing the habit 2 days in a row increases the risk that the behavior will disappear entirely. The moment you miss a day, the goal should be to return to the habit immediately the next day. This simple rule prevents small mistakes from turning into long-term setbacks. Another key idea discussed in the book is the concept of habit contracts and accountability. Human beings are strongly influenced by social expectations. When other people know about our goals, we often feel more responsible for following through. A habit contract is a simple agreement in which you commit to performing a habit and assign consequences if you fail to do so. For example, you might promise a friend that if you skip your daily workout, you will donate money to a cause you dislike. This creates a powerful incentive to remain consistent because the consequences of breaking the habit become immediate and visible. Accountability partners can also play a significant role in maintaining discipline. When you share your goals with someone who supports your growth, they can provide encouragement and reminders when your motivation begins to fade. The presence of another person who expects progress can strengthen your commitment to your habits. Another fascinating insight from Atomic Habits is that the purpose of habits is not simply to achieve goals, but to shape identity. Every habit you repeat becomes evidence of the type of person you believe yourself to be. If you exercise regularly, you begin to see yourself as someone who values health. If you read books every day, you begin to see yourself as a learner. Over time, these repeated actions reinforce a new identity that makes positive behaviors feel natural. This idea explains why small habits can eventually produce dramatic changes in life. Each habit may seem insignificant by itself, but when repeated consistently, it gradually transforms the way you think about yourself. Instead of forcing yourself to act differently, you begin to act in ways that align with your identity. The book also reminds us that habits are a continuous process rather than a final destination. There is no moment when someone becomes permanently disciplined or completely successful. Discipline is something that must be practiced daily. Just as muscles become stronger through repeated exercise, habits become stronger through repeated actions. In the end, the message of Atomic Habits is surprisingly simple, yet incredibly powerful. Big changes do not require big actions. Instead, they require small improvements repeated consistently over time. By focusing on tiny habits, designing supportive environments, following the 4 laws of behavior change, and maintaining consistency through habit tracking and accountability, anyone can gradually reshape their life. The future you experience tomorrow will be shaped by the habits you practice today. Every small action is like casting a vote for the person you are becoming. And when those small actions are repeated day after day, they accumulate into something far greater than we can imagine. As habits become part of daily life, a new challenge often appears. In the beginning, building a new habit feels exciting because every small improvement feels like progress. But after some time, the excitement fades and the routine begins to feel repetitive. Many people reach a point where their habits no longer feel exciting or motivating. This stage is what the author describes as the plateau of mastery. At this stage, the habit has become automatic, but progress appears to slow down. The danger here is that people often lose interest and stop practicing the habit, believing that it is no longer producing results. However, the author explains that this stage is actually where the most meaningful growth happens. The difference between amateurs and professionals often lies in how they respond to boredom. Amateurs practice something only when it feels exciting or motivating, but professionals continue practicing even when the process becomes repetitive. True mastery requires showing up consistently, even on days when motivation is low. The individuals who succeed in the long run are those who fall in love with the process rather than the results. Another important concept introduced in this stage is the idea of reflection and review. As habits become stable, it becomes important to occasionally step back and evaluate whether those habits are still moving you toward the life you want. A system that worked well in the past may eventually become outdated as your goals and circumstances change. For example, a student who develops strong study habits during college may later need to adjust those habits when entering a demanding career. Reflection allows you to refine your systems and continue improving instead of remaining stuck in old routines. The author also emphasizes the importance of maintaining a balance between habits and awareness. While habits are powerful because they allow behaviors to become automatic, there is also a risk that habits can lead to mindless repetition. If someone performs the same action every day without thinking about improvement, progress may stop entirely. This is why professionals in many fields regularly analyze their performance, look for areas of weakness, and adjust their habits to achieve better results. One example of this can be seen in athletes and musicians. Simply repeating the same action thousands of times does not guarantee improvement. What truly leads to growth is deliberate practice. Deliberate practice means focusing on specific areas of weakness and actively working to improve them. This type of focused effort pushes individuals beyond their comfort zones and helps them continue growing even after a habit has become automatic. Another powerful idea discussed in Atomic Habits is the relationship between habits and freedom. Many people believe that discipline restricts their freedom, but the opposite is actually true. Discipline creates freedom. When healthy habits become automatic, they remove the need for constant decision-making. A person who has developed the habit of saving money does not struggle with financial stress every month. A person who exercises regularly does not have to fight the temptation to skip workouts because the habit has already become part of their identity. In this way, habits simplify life by reducing the number of difficult decisions we must make each day. Over time, the accumulation of small habits creates a powerful ripple effect across different areas of life. Improving one habit often leads to improvements in other areas as well. For example, someone who begins exercising regularly may experience increased energy, which improves productivity at work. That productivity may lead to better career opportunities, which in turn improves financial stability. What began as a simple habit gradually transforms multiple aspects of life. The book ultimately reveals a profound truth about personal development. Success is not the result of dramatic transformations that happen overnight. Instead, it is the result of tiny improvements that accumulate day after day. These small habits may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they shape the trajectory of an entire life. Imagine looking back 10 years from now and realizing that the person you have become was shaped by the small choices you made each day. The books you chose to read, the habits you practiced, the skills you developed, and the discipline you maintained all combined to create the future you are living. In the end, the message of Atomic Habits is both simple and powerful. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You only need to focus on improving by 1% each day. Small habits, repeated consistently, have the power to create extraordinary change. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: the habits you practice today are quietly shaping the person you will become tomorrow.